Episode 56 MA November 24, 2023. Gaza wood burning in wartime. World electricity generation. AfricaPM2.5 monitor study. Gaza. Rosep view. One of the negotiations in the hostage transfer of November 24, 2023 was for supplying gas fuel for cooking to some Gazans, to hopefully replace dirty, polluting, wood burning for some Gazans during wartime. As people run out of fuel in Gaza, clay ovens are back in demand. Al-War Al Jazeera. In a wood-fired tabun. New York Times. World electricity generation. How electricity is changing, country by country. November 20, 2023. Excerpts edited by Rosep for brevity and clarity and relationship to Residents Against Wood Smoke Emission Particulates, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. Carbon-free electricity has never been more plentiful. Wind and solar power have taken off over the past 2 decades, faster than experts ever expected. Global demand for electricity has grown even faster than clean energy, leaving fossil fuels to fill the gap. Circles are sized by the amount of total power generated by each country in 2021 to 22. Much of the rising power demand has come from rapidly developing countries like China and India, where new coal plants are still coming online alongside wind and solar farms to power meteoric economic growth. Even on today's trajectory, many experts expect that fossil-fueled power will peak globally in the next few years. It's already falling in major economies like the United States and Europe, and analysts expect China, by far the world's largest power producer, to begin reducing coal-fired generation soon. Experts agree to keeping global temperature rise to below 2 degrees Celsius, and ideally as low as 1.5 degrees. The world has already warmed about 1.2 degrees since pre-industrial times. The power sector is already the world's single biggest source of planet-warming emissions. Plans to rely on plugging into cleaner power. In the United States and much of Europe, fossil-fueled power generation has been declining for years, especially coal, and started to fall in coal-reliant Australia. Wind turbines and solar panels generated 22% of the European Union's electricity last year, up from less than 1% 2 decades ago. The United States made 15% of its electricity from wind and solar energy last year, which is slightly more than the global average. The boom of cheap renewable power helped replace coal-fired generation in Europe. In the United States, natural gas, which pollutes less than coal when burned, but still warms the climate, played a key role in coal's decline, alongside quickly growing wind and solar. Electricity use grew rapidly in rich countries like the United States and many European nations during the previous century, but started to plateau or even decline in the 2000s largely thanks to improved energy efficiency. Yet neither the United States nor the European Union's trajectories are currently on track to meet the world's ambitious 1.5 degrees Celsius climate goal. Other challenges slow down their transitions, as energy experts say they need to accelerate. China overtook the United States as the world's single largest power producer in 2010, and now makes nearly a third of the world's electricity. The country's per-person electricity generation is still much lower than America's. For decades, the country's soaring power demand was fulfilled largely by coal, the most polluting fossil fuel. Coal-fired generation continued to grow, though at a slower pace, even as China significantly expanded carbon-free power in recent years, especially wind and solar. Now, China's power sector is getting close to a turning point. China said it would speed up renewable energy deployment to accelerate the substitution for coal, oil and gas generation. Whether it will stop approving new coal plants remains to be seen. Coal continues to dominate electricity generation in other rapidly developing countries, many in Asia. India, the world's most populous nation, has set strong renewable energy targets, but officials say the country still needs coal. Indonesia said it could phase out coal power by 2040 if it gets enough financial help from rich countries. Millions of people around the world also continue to go without access to any form of electricity. Every country tells a story. Explore trends among the world's top power-producing countries, in alphabetical order, below. Solar power took off in Vietnam but is limited by the country's electrical grid. Data sources and notes. All of the charts and the map are based on electricity generation data from Ember. The data includes rooftop solar generation that is connected to the grid, but not solar generation for personal use that is not connected to the grid, behind the meter. Africa. Saharan Africa. Personal exposure to PM2.5, a study. A personal exposure study across 6 cities in sub-Saharan Africa. The Lancet personal exposure to particulate matter, PM, was monitored in school PM2.5 exposure. Total Environ. 2022, 833155207. Crossref PubMed. Characterizing sources of PM2.5 exposure for school children with asthma, a personal exposure study across 6 cities in sub-Saharan Africa. Open access published, November 21, 2023. DOI, https://doi.org/10.1016/s2352-4642, 23, 00261-4. Previous article. Air pollution exposure among African school children in. Next article. Ending epistemic exclusion, toward a truly global science. Excerpts edited by Razep for brevity and clarity and relationship to Residents Against Wood Smoke Emission Particulates, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. Summary. Background. Air pollution is the second largest risk to health in Africa, and children with asthma are particularly susceptible to its effects. Yet, there is a scarcity of air pollution exposure data from cities in sub-Saharan Africa. We aim to identify potential exposure reduction strategies for school children with asthma living in urban Africa. We aim to identify potential exposure reduction strategies for school children with asthma living in urban areas in sub-Saharan Africa. Methods. This personal exposure study was part of the Achieving Control of Asthma in Children in Africa, ACACIA, project. Personal exposure to particulate matter, PM, was monitored in school children in 6 cities in sub-Saharan Africa: Blantyre, Malawi; Durban, South Africa; Harare, Zimbabwe; Kumasi, Ghana; Lagos, Nigeria; and Moshi, Tanzania. Participants were selected if they were aged 12 to 16 years and had symptoms of asthma. Monitoring was conducted between June 21 and November 26, 2021, from Monday morning, approximately 1000 h, to Friday morning, approximately 1000 h, by use of a bespoke backpack with a small air pollution monitoring unit with an inbuilt global positioning system, GPS, data logger. Children filled in a questionnaire detailing potential sources of air pollution during monitoring, and exposures were tagged into 3 different microenvironments: school, commute, and home, with GPS coordinates. Mixed effects models were used to identify the most important determinants of children's PM2.5, PM2.5 in diameter, exposure. Findings. 330 children were recruited across 43 schools. Of these, 297 had valid monitoring data, and 1,109 days of valid data were analyzed. Only 227, 20%, of 1,109 days monitored were lower than the current WHO24H PM2.5 exposure health guideline of 15 μg/m3. Children in Blantyre had the highest PM2.5 exposure, median 41.8 μg/m3, whereas children in Durban, 16.0 μg/m3, and Kumasi, 17.9 μg/m3, recorded the lowest exposures. Children had significantly higher PM2.5 exposures at school than at home in Kumasi, median 19.6 μg/m3 versus 14.2 μg/m3, Lagos, 32.0 μg/m3 versus 18.0 μg/m3, and Moshi, 33.1 μg/m3 versus 23.6 μg/m3. While children in the other 3 cities monitored had significantly higher PM2.5 exposures at home and while commuting than at school, median 48.0 μg/m3 and 43.2 μg/m3 versus 32.3 μg/m3 in Blantyre, 29 μg/m3 and 16.3 μg/m3 versus 11.9 μg/m3 in Durban, and 22.7 μg/m3 and 25.4 μg/m3 versus 16.4 μg/m3 in Harare. The mixed effects model highlighted the following determinants for higher PM2.5 exposure: presence of smokers at home, 23.0% higher exposure, 95% CI 10.8-36.4, use of coal or wood for cooking, 27.1%, 3.9, 56.3, and kerosene lamps for lighting, 32%, 9.1, 55.2. By contrast, 37.2%, 95% CI 22.9, 48.2, lower PM2.5 exposures were found for children who went to schools with paved grounds compared with those whose school grounds were covered with loose dirt. Interpretation. Our study suggests that the most effective changes to reduce PM2.5 exposures in these cities would be to provide paving in school grounds, increase the use of clean fuel for cooking and light in homes, and discourage smoking within homes. The most efficient way to improve air quality in these cities would require tailored interventions to prioritize different exposure reduction policies in different cities. Funding. UK National Institute for Health and Care Research. View related content for this article. Introduction. Air pollution is one of the leading health risks, estimated to contribute to 6-7 million annual global deaths. Reducing the adverse health effects due to air pollution has been included in the UN's Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, with aims to reduce deaths and illnesses from air pollution, SDG 3.9, and improve air quality in cities, SDG 11.6. The adverse health effects due to air pollution in Africa are of particular concern, since air pollution is the second largest risk factor for death for all ages on the continent after HIV, and this burden is expected to grow in the coming years. Despite this risk, there is a scarcity of regulatory air quality monitoring equipment to quantify exposure levels in sub-Saharan Africa, with continuous monitoring only conducted in 3 countries. Research in context. Evidence before this study. Air pollution is the second largest health risk in Africa, contributing to 1 million deaths in 2019, and children with asthma are particularly susceptible to its effects. Therefore, improving air quality is a targeted risk reduction strategy in the UN Sustainable Developmental Goals. In sub-Saharan Africa, rapid urbanization has been associated with deteriorating air quality, a situation that is expected to worsen in the coming years. Despite this, there is a dearth of human air pollution exposure data in sub-Saharan Africa. Our systematic review, published in 2022 of studies recording personal exposure to PM2.5, particulate matter 25 μm in diameter, found only 9 of 111 studies were conducted in Africa. Only one small study to date has measured PM2.5 exposure in urban school children in Africa. Of the studies conducted in sub-Saharan Africa, the majority focused on rural areas and air pollution exposure from household air pollution. Therefore, there is uncertainty about the magnitude and sources of PM2.5 exposure to children in urban areas in sub-Saharan Africa. Such data are necessary to identify effective interventions to reduce the effects of air pollution on children with symptoms of asthma in cities in sub-Saharan Africa. Added value of this study. As part of the Achieving Control of Asthma in Children in Africa, ACACIA, project, this study is, to the best of our knowledge, the largest personal PM2.5 exposure study and the first to be conducted in children with symptoms of asthma in urban centers in Africa. The study measured personal exposure for 297 school children with asthma in 6 cities in sub-Saharan Africa: Blantyre, Malawi; Durban, South Africa; Harare, Zimbabwe; Kumasi, Ghana; Lagos, Nigeria; and Moshi, Tanzania. This study used the latest high-resolution particulate matter mobile monitoring technology, with continuous 96H exposure measurements of school children conducted with a monitor embedded in a school backpack. This amounted to 1,109 days of exposure data. The study analyzed GPS coordinates to identify microenvironments, home, school, and commute, where children's exposures were the highest. It also identified the potential contribution of natural and anthropogenic sources of this exposure by analyzing PM2.5, PM10 ratios. Mixed effects models were created to identify dominant determinants, facilitating the formulation of evidence-based recommendations to reduce exposure. Implications of all the available evidence. The results of this study provide new information to inform recommendations on how PM2.5 exposure can be reduced in urban areas in sub-Saharan Africa to protect school children with respiratory diseases such as asthma. Although policies to improve air quality across all locations should be implemented, by using high-time resolution monitors to measure personal exposure, we were able to identify the microenvironments in different cities where children's exposure to PM2.5 was highest, to guide prioritization of intervention strategies. Most studies in Africa have focused on household air pollution, but this study reported high exposures at schools compared to home for children in 3 of the 6 cities monitored. This is likely to be due to resuspended dust from unpaved school grounds. These results highlight the need for more targeted interventions to rapidly reduce children's daily exposures to PM2.5 compared with generic policies for reducing air pollution. Rapid urbanization is predicted to continue in sub-Saharan Africa, with estimates highlighting that the urban population will increase from 43% of the total population in 2018 to 59% by 2050. Without intervention, this rapid urbanization will have a detrimental impact on air quality. Fine particulate matter, i.e., 25 μm in diameter, PM2.5, is a particularly scrutinized air pollutant because of its links with adverse health effects. Increased levels of PM2.5 exposure have been causally linked to respiratory diseases such as asthma, with higher susceptibility observed in children following both short-term and long-term exposure. Furthermore, an increasing prevalence of asthma in Africa is thought to be due to increasing urbanization on the continent. However, few studies to date have quantified the air pollution exposure of people in urban communities in Africa, with the majority of research focusing on household air pollution from biomass burning in rural communities. Measurement of personal exposure with portable air pollution monitors has increased in the past decade as a result of advances in technology. Miniaturized monitors can provide high time-resolved measurements. These measurements, paired with Participant Global Positioning System, GPS, coordinates, allow a better understanding of where, when, and how people are exposed to air pollution. This technology can provide exposure estimates for countries without regulatory monitors and allow for targeted interventions to reduce personal exposure. Our previous systematic review on personal PM2.5 exposure highlighted that despite low-income and middle-income countries having higher PM2.5 exposures than high-income countries, only 4 of 111 studies had been conducted in urban sub-Saharan Africa. Therefore, there is an urgent need for more studies to identify the magnitude and sources of PM2.5 exposure in school children living in cities in sub-Saharan Africa. Although PM2.5 is the pollutant of interest, the ratio between PM2.5 and larger particles such as PM10 has been used to better identify the source of PM2.5 in different environments. Lower PM2.5, PM10 ratios indicate a higher proportion of larger particles and therefore have been associated with natural sources of PM2.5, such as resuspended dust, whereas higher ratios have been linked to anthropogenic sources. This study aimed to characterize PM2.5 exposure in school children with asthma. In 6 cities in sub-Saharan Africa, we used high-resolution continuous 96H PM measurements combined with a novel analysis of GPS coordinates and PM2.5, PM10 ratios to characterize PM2.5 exposure by source and microenvironment. We aim to identify potential exposure reduction interventions for school children living in urban areas in sub-Saharan Africa. Methods, study design and participants. This personal exposure study was a component of the Achieving Control of Asthma in Children in Africa, ACACIA, project, which aimed to understand and improve the health of young people with asthma in Africa. We monitored personal PM exposure in 6 cities in sub-Saharan Africa: Blantyre, Malawi; Durban, South Africa; Harare, Zimbabwe; Kumasi, Ghana; Lagos, Nigeria; and Moshi, Tanzania. 330 school children aged 12 to 16 years with asthma were recruited for this study. Briefly, research teams screened for and diagnosed asthma symptoms by conducting a breathing survey at schools, based on questions from the International Study of Asthma and Allergies in Childhood, ISAC, Asthma Core Questionnaire. Schools were invited to participate in the ACACIA study and those that agreed to participate were selected. Children identified during ACACIA screening with wheezing symptoms in the previous 12 months were invited to take part in the study. The site in Moshi, Tanzania, was added for the present study and did not participate in ACACIA. The ACACIA screening survey was therefore applied in schools in Moshi as part of this study. Monitoring at a 7th location, Kampala, Uganda, was discontinued because of COVID-19 pandemic restrictions. Children who were monitored provided assent to participate in the study and written signed consent was provided by their parents or guardians. Monitoring was conducted between June 21 and November 26, 2021, during weekdays from Monday morning, approximately 1000 H, to Friday morning, approximately 1000 H, with up to 8 children being monitored simultaneously during a week. Further details of each study site and maps of school locations are provided in the appendix, pp 3-9. Following recruitment, each child was given a bespoke backpack, Dyson, Malmesbury, UK, incorporating a small air pollution monitoring unit with an inbuilt GPS data logger previously used for a study in London, UK. Before monitoring, each location's research team was provided with the standard operating procedure and training to undertake fieldwork. Children at their respective schools were instructed by the local research team to carry the backpack with them for 4 full days, including while at school, home, and traveling between the two locations. The unit measured PM10, PM2.5, and NO2, and was placed in the front pocket of the school backpack, Appendix P10. Each child's exposure to NO2 and PM, as well as their GPS location, were collected at 1s intervals, encrypted, and stored in the backpack's logging unit. All units were calibrated and co-located to a reference monitor before deployment. Due to high uncertainty in performance during calibration, the NO2 sensor data were not analyzed in this study, Appendix P11. Ethical approval to conduct the study was obtained individually from local research ethics committees for each study site, Appendix P11. Procedures. On the first day of monitoring, children filled in a questionnaire in English, with assistance from the field team, Appendix PP 12-18. The questionnaire incorporated questions such as self-reported gender, ethnicity, asthma diagnosis, use of an inhaler, and details about their home, including cooker type, lighting, presence of smokers, and other potential air pollution sources. During the monitoring week, children filled out a daily diary, Appendix P19, which recorded any asthma symptoms for the day, the transport modes to get to and from school, and other potential activities that could have resulted in elevated pollution levels. The GPS coordinate data collected during monitoring were used to determine and tag the microenvironment of each child on a minute-by-minute basis. Activities were split into home, school, and commute microenvironments. Further details on how GPS data were tagged are included in the appendix, P20. Tagged minute exposure data were used to create summary statistics of pollutant levels for each child in each microenvironment. Data were only analyzed if a child collected more than 24H of continuous valid data within the 96H monitoring period. Figure 3. Diurnal hourly PM2.5 exposure for all children by location. Table 2. Fixed effects determinants from mixed effects model for children's logged daily personal PM2.5 exposure. Reference group percentage change 95% CIP value. Cooker type. Gas and biomass electric 80% -60 to 244030. Coal or wood, biomass, electric 27.1% 39 to 56.30028. Open fire and biomass electric 28.8% 11 to 64.50049. Smoking at home. Presence of smokers no smokers 23.0% 10.8 to 36.400002. Children who lived in a home with an outdoor cooker had, on average, a 14.5% lower daily PM2.5 exposure than those who lived in a home with an indoor cooker. Children had, on average, a higher daily PM2.5 exposure if they lived in a home in which the main cooker was coal or wood, or open fire than if they lived in a home in which the main cooker was electric. Significantly higher exposures observed when children were near a waste burning site, and higher exposures for males compared with females. Headlines. United States, Hill Energy vs. PM2.5 pollution limits. Hill Energy brief, critics slam EPA's stricter pollution limits. Bloomberg Law News particulate matter, or PM2.5, and is set to release the new rules before 2024. The rules will potentially decrease the amount of PM2.5 that is. United States, Industry vs. Clean Air PM2.5 rules. Industry slams tougher air rules as EPA readies new SOT limits. Bloomberg Law News particulate matter or PM2.5. The rules will potentially decrease the amount of PM2.5 that is allowable in states' ambient air, triggering Alaska, Fairbanks. EPA issues final air plan action. KUAC.org Dunbar says updated modeling has changed the understanding of SO2 emissions and the formation of PM2.5 particulates. Indicates that maybe particulate pollution, wood stoves. For people to be able to convert from burning wood to liquid fuels, but also for the first time these grant. EPA finalizes action on Fairbanks Air Plan, partners with state on new one, provides $10 recognizing that wood smoke remains the largest source of fine particle burning appliances and oil to gas conversion and further assist in the Environmental Protection Agency PM2.5 problem. In January of this year, the EPA sought public comment on its proposal to approve and disapprove parts of the state's current plan. California, Napa Valley. Bay Area Air District advises against holiday wood burning. The Napa Valley Register burning wood over the Thanksgiving holiday this year. District officials said wood smoke is the largest source of wintertime air pollution in the California, San Francisco Bay Area. Bay Area buoys breathe easy plea to forego hearths harm this Turkey Day. Headline wood burning fires, stressing the hefty toll they exact on public health. What is this? Report ad. Wood smoke is the major source of air pollution. Air District asks people to refrain from burning wood over the holiday. Cron 4, BCN. The Bay Area Air Quality Management District is asking people to voluntarily refrain from burning wood over the Thanksgiving holiday. This Air District asks people to refrain from burning wood over the holiday. NBC Bay Area District officials said wood smoke is the largest source of wintertime air pollution in the region and, like wildfire and cigarette smoke, it is burning wood over the Thanksgiving holiday this year. District officials said wood smoke is the largest source of wintertime air pollution in the Air Quality District requests no wood burning over holiday. YouTube Cron 4's James Fletcher reports. https://www.cron4.com/news/air-district-asks-people-to-refrain-wood-over-the-holiday. Air District asks residents not to use fireplaces, wood stoves over holiday. Daily Republic. One fireplace burning can pollute an entire neighborhood. Exposure to wood smoke, the district added, has been linked to serious respiratory. Air District asks people to refrain from burning wood over the holiday. Cron 4, BCN. The Bay Area Air Quality Management District is asking people to voluntarily refrain from burning wood over the Thanksgiving holiday. This Hawaii, Honolulu. Litigation rekindled over wood-burning Big Isle Power Plant. Honolulu Star advertiser. An on and off effort by the owner of an idle Hawaii Island renewable energy power plant to obtain damages in federal court from Hawaiian Electric. Hawaii, Big Isle wood-burning power plant. Litigation rekindled over wood-burning Big Isle Power Plant. AOL.com burning wood to Hawaiian Electric subsidiary Hawaii Electric Light Company. The 30-megawatt project was to produce around 10% of the island's burn to make electricity, and sell power from burning wood to Hawaiian Electric subsidiary Hawaii Electric Light Company. The 30-megawatt project was Illinois, Chicago. Soot from coal-fired power plants more deadly, study shows. Chicago Tribune. Though PM2.5 can't be seen with the naked eye, the spread of smoke from Canadian wildfires during the summer provided a vivid example of how soot. Iowa, Cedar Rapids. Marshalltown garage fire linked to ashes from wood stove. KCRG. When you have those. Nebraska, Lincoln. Northeast Lincoln house fire forces residents to relocate. Lincoln Journal Star. The owner told firefighters the fire was potentially inside the walls and stemmed from a wood-burning stove in the basement. LFR spokesperson MJ. Nebraska, Lincoln. Fire causes $150,000 to East Lincoln House. KLIN News/Talk 1400. Public Information Officer MJ Learman says the fire was found in the wall that came from a wood-burning stove in the basement. She says crews. New York, Rochester, Genesee County. Fire damages home in Oakfield in Genesee County. WHEC.com. No official cause yet, but the assistant chief says signs point to a wood-burning stove. Canada, British Columbia, Kimberley. City of Kimberley responds to complaints of smoke from /pile burning. Kimberley Bulletin. Some people have expressed concerns and requested reasons why the fire department chooses to burn versus chip the wood piles. A city press release. Australia, New South Wales. Dry, windy conditions make fighting fires difficult. Local news, local3news.com. Local 3 News. This includes charcoal or wood-burning grills. NWS Morristown says this is because of extremely dry and dangerous fire weather conditions. If we got. United Kingdom, Stratford-upon-Avon, National Farmers Union. NFU Mutual's wood-burning stove warning after cottage fire. Southwest Farmer. A rural insurer has issued a warning to owners of a wood-burning stove after a couple from Devon saw their thatched cottage go up in flames. United Kingdom. Wood-burning stove warning after couple's cottage completely destroyed by fire. Daily Express. Wood-burner stoves have soared in popularity in recent years, but homeowners are being urged to beware of the risks that come with them. The UK's leading rural insurer, NFU Mutual, has issued a warning to homeowners with wood-burning stoves to pay close attention to fire safety. Gaza, wood-burning in wartime. China. Southern China rainfall boosts air pollution in North China Plain. Mirage News. Air pollution, known as haze, dominated by higher PM2.5 concentration, is well documented for its adverse impacts on both human health. China, Shanghai. Shanghai shivers, cold front to bring good air quality. Shine News. Shanghai Daily. The main pollutant PM2.5, the indicator of pollution, hit more than 182 at around 4 p.m. on Thursday. The authorities reminded children, elderly. India, Delhi. PM2.5 interferes with cricket match. Cricket World Cup 2023, polluted air. The common opponent. Reuters. Satellite imagery of Delhi's Arun Jaitley Stadium on match days. October 3, PM2.5, 54 micrograms per cubic meter. Ahead of the India, stubble burning and PM2.5. Stubble burning is one among many causes of bad air. Deccan Herald. However, it is time the governments showed seriousness in tackling the issue. The highest level of pollution in Delhi this year, PM2.5, was recorded. India, Delhi. No improvement in Delhi's air quality. The Statesman. According to the Pollution Monitoring Agency, the primary pollutant responsible for making the city air unfit continued to be PM2.5. India, Northern India. A hazy November in northern India. NASA Earth Observatory. The World Health Organization considers 15 micrograms per cubic meter of fine particulate matter, PM2.5, to be a safe limit. But ground-based air, Iran and PM2.5 surrounding greenness is associated with lower risk and burden of low birth weight in Iran. Nature. Exposure levels of ambient temperature, relative humidity, and PM2.5 for each pregnant woman throughout her pregnancy were consistently evaluated by Korea. Fine dust chokes nation just before cold snap begins. Korea. Jungang Daily. According to the institute, large amounts of fine dust began arriving from overseas at dawn Thursday. Ultrafine dust refers to PM2.5 or particles. Thailand. PM2.5 pollution exceeds safe threshold in most of Bangkok nation. Thailand. PM2.5 Bangkok Thai districts. Thailand News. The nation. Air quality. Air pollution, PM2.5 and disparities. Web-based tool provides insights into disparities in exposure to fine particulate airborne matter. phys.org. PM2.5 has long been recognized as a significant health concern, with strong links to increased mortality and morbidity. It often disproportionately. PM2.5 and hospitalizations. Short-term fine particulate matter exposure increases COPD hospitalizations. American Journal of Managed Care. Consequently, the researchers evaluated the short-term association between PM2.5 exposure and COPD hospitalization risk by analyzing related studies.